I think there's probably a set of red flags that apply broadly, and then some that maybe aren't necessarily red flags, but just what's important to you at that stage of your career and what you're looking for. For you to do a really good job, or for it to be a fun job, you need the product to be relatively strong. You need the problems that it's trying to solve to be problems that exist whether your company exists or not. And then kind of the last piece there is you have to enjoy working with the profile of person that would probably use your product. So a good example here is if you, there's sometimes a stigma against salespeople. If you really don't like salespeople, you probably should not support a sales intelligence tool where your stakeholders are all going to be salespeople. On the flip side, I found for HR tech, awesome people. HR folks have a harder time getting budget approved versus their engineering or sales counterparts. So all things consider is who are you selling into, who are you supporting, and then kind of what are their typical behaviors like, and then what influence or non-influence they have within their companies. If you're someone that enjoys doing a lot of different things, wants to learn, wants to be more of a generalist, really big companies, it's just going to be harder where they're so specialized. And then on the flip side, if you're someone that really thrives with a lot of structure, knowing exactly what the job is, having a really specific set of skills, and really enjoying that, startups might be really tough for you because it's harder to have that. So yeah, some of it is just figuring out where you fit in and where you thrive. What they're making, what they're spending, and then kind of what they've raised. So those three things I look at to see if any one of them seems a little bit too out of whack. Sometimes raising really big rounds could be a red flag depending on how the actual performance is, especially if you're looking at the time of raise for some of this stuff. So in 2021, 2022, I'm sure companies raised big rounds. Oftentimes, at valuations that will be really hard to grow into. Don't take it for face value as far as how much money they raise. Really try to dig into things like, do they have product market fit? Are their customers happy? How do you know they're happy? As more of a basis for deciding what's going to happen. If they just raised money, they should theoretically, hopefully have a pretty decent runway. If you can get a sense for what the total revenue that they're doing is today in ARR, so what are they generating? And then just doing a really rough back of the napkin math on how many employees they have, right? So you assume within tech, when you factor in benefits and everything else, anywhere between 150K to 200K fully loaded is typically an employee cost. And so if they've raised 30 million, but they have 500 employees, every single year on salary alone, that's what they're going to have to burn just to stay kind of at pace with what they're doing. I think CS is a little bit unique in that you're on the hook for delivering, what the company says it can do. So it's even more important, I think, to vet how valid the problem is that they're trying to solve, and then how well or how good of a job they do at solving. Red flags there would be like, if you're not convinced that the problem's worth solving, it's probably very hard to then convince someone who needs to pay 6 figures to solve that problem that it's worth solving. So I would trust your gut on some of those things too. If it just won't renew, if people are canceling all the time, if there's no one there to handhold them or cover up for the deficiencies of the product, I think that's a challenge. A lot of people think, we're the only one doing this thing. It's like, that's awesome, but folks have been trying to solve problems for a very long time. Is there maybe not that big of a problem to solve? Yeah, I mean, you can get lucky and join a gong in one of those, but I feel like the odds of success with folks trying to create a category is just going to be tougher, that you found the right one or the perfect one. You have to get really good at asking questions within the interview process to suss some of these things out, right? Because if you go to anyone's website, everyone is the next unicorn, $1 trillion company solving, the most important thing on it. Candidates where I feel like they're doing a lot of digging in a really positive way. I think one is just asking what parts of the customer lifecycle does CS own, and what parts do they partner with other teams on. That'll give you as a candidate a really good sense for what your day-to-day job will be like. The number one reasons for churn that you see within the customers. I love it when folks ask that because it's a good question. And if the number one reason is our product keeps breaking all the time, that's not good. And how do you measure success of CS as an org? And depending on which KPIs they tell you, will probably be pretty good indicators of the type of activities or workload or style of work that they expect. I think getting a sense for what their expectations are of CS and what problems they expect CS to own and handle will help you realize if it's a culture that will be a good fit for what you enjoy. As much as you can, try to work your network. I spoke to a lot of people at companies that I didn't know directly, but I knew somebody that knew them. Said, hey, I see you're hiring, or I see there might be needs, just want to learn more about like your experience, see what you think, ask you a couple questions, should take no more than 15 minutes. So I think having a lot of that kind of on the ground research and getting opinions from people within the company